Okay. So today I'm going to be taking you through calculations related to financial mathematics. But before we can get into finance, I will need to take you through percentage calculation. You will definitely understand why it is important for us to start with a percentage calculation. I'll just keep it simple, honorable member, and say maybe example number 1. Yes, let's start with example number 1, where let's say find 25% of 200. Yes, it is a question which says find a percentage of a 200. So the question now is, how are you going to calculate it? Because what you need to know is that this thing, percentage, it means out of 100. In other words, it means you are having 25 out of 100. And then that weight of, it simply means you just multiply that by 200. So that's how you easily work it out, honorable member, and you punch it on a calculator. Trust me when I say it is going to give you a 50. So that means the answer is equals to 50, which means 25% of 200 is 50. Maybe let me give you another example. This one, so that you can have an idea of what we are talking about. So if they say a 50% of 100, obviously we know that 50%, it is therefore 50 out of 100, of meaning you multiply it by 100. Definitely this is going to be 50. So that means 50% of 100 is 50. That being an example that I just added to that example number 1. Maybe let's jump on to example number 2. And then this time around, let's say you have to find, maybe let's say find a 15% of 480. Yes, find a 15% of 480. Okay, so now it should be easy because what we know is that a percentage means out of 100, and then of what? Of 480. Then you just punch it on your calculator. Trust me when I say it will give you 72. And that should be the end of it. Maybe let's do another example. Let's do another example. And maybe say this one being example number 3, where you are required to find, maybe let's make it 12% of, now we are calculating a percentage of money, which is 650. So that means it's going to be 12 that you divide it by 100 and you multiply it by 650. Trust me when I say the answer will give you 78 rands. So you write it as 78 rands because it is the money that you are working with. Okay, so now, maybe on this same lesson, let's try to do some calculations of percentage increase and percentage decrease. So maybe let me refer to this as example number A, whereby we are going to be looking at a percentage increase. Okay, so let us say, as an example, maybe a shirt. Yes, let's try to be practical and say you've got a shirt, which costs how much? Let's just say 400. A shirt that costs 400. Then the price increase by 10%. So the price of this shirt, what it does, it is to increase by 10%. So the question will be saying, find the new price. Find the new price. So obviously, what we know is that it will no longer cost 400, but it will cost more. More by how much? More by 10%. So to calculate the new cost, so that means new cost will have to be the original price. The original price, and that original price, you will have to add it by that 10% of the original price. I hope it makes sense, Honorable. So which means it's going to cost 400 plus that 10% increase of that original price. So in other words, when you look at this part alone, it takes us back to what we have been calculating, where we will say 10% of original price being 400. So that means we are having 10 out of 100 of 400. So this is now 10% of 400, which is 40. So it therefore gives us 40 rands. So now we can calculate the new cost. So that means the new cost will be equals to the original price, 100, that we plus it by 40, and that means the new price is going to be 440 rands. So that's how you calculate a percentage increase. So maybe let's look at another example whereby under this example, what are we going to do? Let's say maybe a learner scored 60% in term 1. Okay, so this is what happens. A learner scored percent in term 1. So this is you scored 60% in term 1. Okay, then you score 75% in term 2. Yes. So the question will be, what is the percentage increase? Definitely this one, even though it is not related to the finance maths that we might be doing, but let's just do it anyway. But when you are given two percentages and you have to calculate the percentage increase, so you take those two percentages and say, okay, from 60% to 75%. There is an increase of 15%. So it's like you're saying 75% minus 60%, it gives you 15%. Can you see? So now it therefore means, you see this small percentage and that increase. So that means you're going to say it has increased by 15 from 60, and then you multiply this by 100 and it's going to give you 25%. So that means from 60% to 70%, it is an increase of 25%. A bit tricky, but the steps on that one is for you to know that from 60 to 70, from a small percentage to a bigger percentage, it's an increase or it's an addition of 15%. So now you are going to say that small percentage and that additional percentage, it is the two things that you use to calculate the percentage increase. I hope that part makes sense. So now, let's see. I'm now going to do an example related to a percentage decrease. Let me just verify if the recording is still in order, because sometimes it happens that I'm busy recording and then it disappears. Okay, it looks like the recording is still fine. I'm just hoping that it continues to record. Okay, I'll just wait for that image to save, and then once it is saved, I will therefore continue. But now what I'm going to be doing is a percentage decrease. Let me just write it down there and say now I'm looking at a percentage decrease. Okay, then it's fine. So let's look at a percentage decrease and see what's happening there. So they say a population decrease from 1,200 to 900. So now they say find percentage decrease. Yes. So now this is how you work it out, almost the same as what we have done before, whereby originally we had 1,200 people, and then now we have how many did we lose, or what was the decrease in terms of the number? 1,200 minus that is definitely 300. You see, so now that you have the difference between the initial or the original number and the new number, then when you now calculate the percentage decrease, you are therefore going to take that 300, this time around you divide it by that original or the initial, and then you multiply it by 100. Then the answer that you get, it is your percentage decrease. In this case, if you punch it on your calculator, definitely it will give you 25%. Maybe let's do one more example and we should be done with the calculations related to the percentages. And then from there, you will do a quick test of similar questions. So now let's see. Let's say after a 25% discount, the price of a jacket is now 750. Now they are saying find the original price. Find the original price. Bit of a tricky question there. Definitely a bit of a tricky question there. After a 25% discount, the price of a jacket is 750. Now they say find the original price. So this type of a question, honorable member, it should not be confusing you. So every time when we talk about after a discount, of which in this case is 25% discount, this is the price after a discount. So that means originally we had 100% a price, of which they removed that 25% being the discount. So that means we remain with 75%. So after you saying 100% minus 25%, and then you remain with that, then it means what you are therefore going to do it shouldn't be that much complicated. You just take that money. You see that money of 750. You then divide it by that 75%, and then you multiply it by 100. And then the answer that you get, it becomes 1,000. So that means the original price was 1,000. I hope that part makes sense. So what I've just done, it was the steps in which you work it out in case if they are talking about a discount and they give you the price after the discount was applied. Then for you to calculate the original price, you will therefore say, okay, originally it was 100%, and then they removed 25%. And then after removing that 25%, you therefore remain with that 75%. Then you use the 75% in order to calculate the original price. So that's how you would work it out, honorable member. I will definitely give you some practice questions so that they prepare you for the upcoming lessons. Okay, so I think I'll leave it here and say until we meet again.